Welcome to Motorcycle Hang Time with Chris Klotz, attorney at Stevenson Klotz Injury Lawyers. We invite you to hang with us as we talk about the local motorcycle scene, safety issues, and motorcycle law. And now, here's your fellow motorcycle rider and enthusiast and host.
Hey everybody, this is Chris Klotz with Motorcycle Hang Time. I am a lawyer with the Stevenson Klotz Injury Law Firm here in Pensacola, Florida. And today we are honored to have a special guest. Everybody mostly knows his biker dad. I know him as Chris Best. He's from over in Alabama. And welcome, Chris. Thanks for coming on the show today. How you doing, man?
Thanks for having me. I'm the one who's honored to be here. I really appreciate it.
We got so much to talk about today on this podcast. I just can't wait to get into it. So just tell us just a little bit, where do you live? And then we'll get into your story.
So I live in a little town called Spanish Fort, Alabama. It's pretty much smack in the middle of, in between Pensacola, Florida and Mobile, Alabama. It's about 30 minutes from the beach, and you're around riding. As you know, you're just down the highway a little bit. And one of the reasons I live here, and one of the reasons I am here is because of my former career, but also stayed here because we can ride all year long. It's got a great biker community here.
Where did you move from?
I was raised pretty much in Seattle, and then moved to Missouri in high school, which was a giant culture shock, and decided I want to get into journalism. Just happened to be that the University of Missouri has the best journalism school in the world. One of the things they don't really teach you is that you're going to spend your life moving around if you get into television news. So I started in a small market in Missouri called Cape Girardeau. Then I went to the big market in Kansas City, then moved to Orlando, then to Dallas, then to Houston, and then to Memphis, where I was running a TV station, and at the same time, about 10 years ago, starting to ride motorcycles again. TV news is a really stressful business. And I came home one day from work in Houston, actually, and my wife goes, "What in the F is wrong with you?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "This is the first time I've seen you smile in 6 months. What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I rode a Harley at lunch. The dealership's right across the street." She goes, "Go back and buy the damn thing right now." And that's kind of how it started. So I went and bought this old Sportster for like $3,000, and they said, "You're going to be back in 6 months to trade it in." And I said, "BS, no, I'm not. You're just trying to upsell me." And they said, you're not just buying a motorcycle, right? You're buying into this community. And I'm like, "No, I just want to ride a motorcycle and look cool and have fun and not worry about life." But they were 100% right, and I immediately noticed that. And so when I moved to Memphis, I actually traded that motorcycle in 6 months, just like they said they would for a Street Bob, which I still have, that we call Elvis. And we call it Elvis because I really started Biker Dad in Memphis. One of the first things I did as Biker Dad was allowed to ride my Harley up onto the steps of Graceland, which they don't let people do really. And that's when we named the bike Elvis. And then I started this blog there, and it blew up really fast, like 100,000 followers in a month on Facebook. And I actually thought about getting out of TV news and trying to transition to doing that for a living back then. And that was almost 6-7 years ago now. But I got an offer in Mobile, Alabama that I couldn't refuse. So moved down here, had that job for 5 years, and guess what? Got sick of it. And during COVID, I was like, we have all of these safety nets right now. They're giving us stimulus checks. They'll give you extra unemployment if you don't have a job, all these other things. And I got to thinking, instead of moving again, why don't I take a shot at this? Because this is the best time. Like, a lot of people thought that COVID was a bad time to start a business, but for me, it was the best time because I had a safety net. I didn't have to worry about paying a lot of my bills and things like that because they had all of these incentives going on. And so I quit, and after 10 years of making money for my TV stations by writing this blog and doing TV appearances for free, I decided to try to make a living out of it myself. And while I'm sitting on my couch one day thinking, how the hell am I going to pull this off? What am I going to do? I know I'm going to do a TV show because I spent 25 years making TV. And then I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw that you were going to be at bike night in Pensacola. It's like, I don't really want to get off my ass, but I did anyway, and I went over there. And you're like, "So what are you going to do now?" And I told you, and you know the story, and you were like, "I'm in. I'm going to sponsor the TV show. I want to be in it, but you need to come to Orlando and meet with National Academy of Motorcycle Injury Lawyers with me." And I did, and that step really made it a success. So lawyers like Chris sponsor the show across the country. We're in 12 markets right now, and each one of them sponsors the show in that market, and that's how I've started to make a living out of it. And a lot of people get on Facebook and YouTube and like, how do you make money off of YouTube and Facebook? I do make some off of that, but that's not really how I make my living. It's off the TV show and using what I know. So thank you for doing that.
It's been so much fun to work with you and get to know you. And I'm gonna do what you do on your shows, and that is kind of really get into the. I know that you do. Your shows are mostly about motorcycle community, motorcycle culture. But you've always told me that your interest is in the human stories, and it just happens to be about people who ride motorcycles. And man, I'm so fascinated by the courage that it takes, and the just the leap of faith that you take when you do something like going from corporate America for almost your whole career and having a college education and knowing where you want to go with journalism, and then saying, you know what, heck with this, I'm gonna follow my dream and actually like just jump off the edge of the cliff and dive into it, full on. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about that. I mean, how'd you get the nerve up to finally do it, and what was going through your mind when you finally made the jump?
Well, one of the really big things, and I don't give her enough credit for this all the time, is that my wife was like, yes, just do it. Shut up and do it. And part of it is that she saw, even though I quit my job and I was miserable at my job, that I was probably the happiest she'd seen me since that first day that I rode a motorcycle. And it's really her support and the support of my family that's allowed me to do it. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because most of the time I'm now home. I can go pick the kids up from school. I'm here for their whatever. As before, I didn't get home till 7 or 8 at night. Sometimes work on the weekends if there's an emergency, all that stuff. But on the flip side, I'm on the road a lot because I'm going all over the country to cover these events and cover the biker community. And my wife has been 100% on board with it since the beginning, and that is a huge reason it worked. But also, it's just take the same drive and the same passion that I had for television news for 25 years until I got burned out on it, and just focus that energy on something else. I'm fortunate that I have knowledge on both sides of it. I have the education and the experience to produce this stuff, but also know the biker community enough to know what is real and what's not authentic, and be able to figure those things out and kind of mix them together. I'm the kind of guy who used to be on the weekends. You see me in tank tops and tattoos, and on Monday with a suit and tie on, or you might see me crossing the Bayway on a Harley with a suit and tie on because I'm going to work. And so I'm really good at riding that fence as well. And like I said before, I think that at least, maybe still now the case, but at least during the height of COVID, I think that was it wasn't as risky because there were a lot of people facing adversity, and the adversity I was facing was a lot less than they were. I think it's a little bit of timing, luck, but at the same time, you make your own luck. And I think if I hadn't gotten off that couch on Thursday when I was feeling down and came and visited you, none of this would have happened. So, if you're thinking about doing something like that, just go out and do it. Do the work and just do it, and you'll be surprised at what happens. And there are a lot of people who want to become YouTubers or whatever, and I can completely understand that. And the advice that I've heard from it is, then just do it. Now, don't quit. If you do have to have some kind of talent and some kind of hook that gets people interested in you. You have to have some kind of personality. Not everybody can do it. It seems like everybody can do it, but those guys who are a lot more well-known than me, who are extremely successful at it, are just really talented people too. So.
Yeah. And so if you don't mind, when I first met, if we could talk about this piece of your story, because it really kind of cuts to the heart of something that I've gotten to know about you, and that is you have a tremendous amount of self-discipline and drive. And I can remember one of the first times that you and I spent some significant time together was on a poker run that we did for the Heart Association. And we went to a couple of places and stopped along the way, and we were eating, and you ordered chicken wings. And I know that you were eating chicken wings solid for how many years, man? Tell me about that.
So I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
Labor Day weekend. Again, all the stress and everything of the world, I had just gotten fat. Let's just be blunt about it. And I just been, so here's kind of my process is like, I do think on things for a long time, obsess about them in my head. And that's how I get mentally prepared to actually do it. So then when I do actually do it, it's just like I've been ramping up. I've been on the runway and I just take off. So on Labor Day weekend of 2018, I decided I'm going to do keto. And the thing about for some people with keto, in case you don't know what that is, it's extremely low carb diet. It makes some people feel really crappy, and that usually lasts like 3 to 5 days. For me, and I was lucky I was on vacation, it lasted like a month, and I was deathly ill for like a week and just laying in my bed. But it was kind of like, if you ever seen Train Spotting, where he's going through the withdrawals in the room and the baby's crawling on the ceiling. It felt like that. I quit smoking like 20 years ago. It was easier to quit smoking than quit bread.
Right.
And then, but once I got past that, like you said, I'm pretty relentless about everything. I wrote a blog story where I think in the first year, I probably ate like 4,000 chicken wings. That's not really an exaggeration at all.
That's crazy, man. So we're on a podcast right now, and not everybody can see, but Biker Dad is shredded, man. And he every time I get around him, I'm like, I'm so freaking lame, dude. Chris has totally turned himself around and he's freaking ripped, and he's like on the beach with his like shirt off, posting on, and here I am with my dad bod, just hanging out going, gosh dang it, man. And I'm saying this in a complimentary way, because you really have, like taken your life by the reins, and you're doing exactly what you want to do, and you're taking care of yourself, and you're just doing these amazing things in a way that reaches out to people in the biker community, and you're able to relate to them. And so can you tell our listeners a little bit kind of about how you connect with people in the biker community? Maybe I want to hear a couple of your stories about, I know people like call you out, like not a real biker. And
yeah.
just tell us, how do you connect with people on the story level? What are you looking for when you film or do a story, and just kind of some of the crazy interactions that you've had in the biker community that are just kind of fun to hear about?
We'll start with the real biker thing. Yeah, people get on my Facebook page and call me a poser and all of this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I am a poser. I never once said that I was a real biker. This is why the podcast and the Facebook page and everything is called Biker Dad, not Biker Billy Badass. The dad part is to point out the fact that it's like, not to get too Jungian, but a dichotomy where it's like, yes, there's more to people than one dimension. And me,
100%.
I grew up blue collar with my dad building motorcycles in the living room, in a way a lot of people would just call like, redneck, whatever. But I worked really hard from the first day I can remember in my life. Like, I am going to grow up and do something with myself. So I worked really hard to be the first person on either side of my family going back 1,000 years to go to college. And I'm proud of that part of myself too. So it's like you've witnessed this. One of the things I say to the people who call me posers, who usually are really the real poser, is like, I have
true.
I have people with patches who have my back, which means the 1% biker gang people. And I have people with badges who have my back. So it's on both sides of the fence that these people know that what I'm doing, whether they like it sometimes or not, it's really who I am and it's real. There's nothing less posery than saying I'm not a real biker. I'm just a nerd who likes motorcycles and have found a way to make it my living and my life. And that's perfectly fine with me. Almost everybody I ride with can ride better than I do. Anytime I try to fix something on my motorcycle, I screw it up. I'm not a mechanic, but I love to ride, and I put tens of thousands of miles on my bikes every year. And I love hanging out with the people who like to do it too. And, since May 7th, 2021, when I started doing this, I've literally had the opportunity to ride everywhere from the Florida Keys to the Pacific Northwest, New York to California. And again, I'm not a real biker, but if somebody who rides all of those places isn't a real biker, I really don't know what the definition of it is, and I really don't care. One of the interactions that I had with one of the one percenter clubs was I'd written a story for my blog about one of the chapters in Nevada, I think, or Oklahoma or something, they got in a shootout. And I was in Tennessee, and honestly, this guy's no longer with us because he got shot in a biker bar in Knoxville by a member of another club. But he came up to me at this event with our friend April with Garza Law.
Yep.
And said, I saw that story you wrote about my club. And I was like, oh, shit, this is going to be a problem. And April's not going to be happy. I'm starting shit with this guy. Well, he goes, yeah, it was completely accurate and fair. Shook my hand. And that's how the real bikers treat me. There's a 1% club that has a very big presence at Mardi Gras in Mobile. I go to their camp that they have. They treat me like a brother and want to take selfies with me and stuff like that. And then I walk down the other end of the street and the cops are shaking my hand and taking selfies with me too. So to me, that tells me that I'm doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a real testament to, and it really kind of maybe a little bit from just, well, first of all, your personality, because Chris is a super great guy, but also maybe a little bit from your journalism background where you kind of stay in the middle, know how to remain neutral, know how to be diplomatic and treat people with respect. Because really, honestly, when you're talking, about interacting with anybody in the biker community, all you have to do is just be, respectful of people. And that doesn't mean anything fancy. It just means, treating people fairly and kindly and being direct. That's one of the things about the biker community that really speaks to me is that, most people are just very direct, and you don't find, in our everyday lives, you don't often find as much directness as you do, but you will find some pretty damn direct people in the biker community, and they'll just tell it like it is, and you don't take offense, and you listen and you learn, and everybody. It's just one of the best group of people around, and it's so funny that motorcycles have been the glue that kind of hold this community of people together that very much come from all walks of lives, from any, background you can think of. But once you get on that bike, people really do watch out for each other. It's pretty crazy to see that dynamic coming together. There are almost 9 million motorcycles registered in the United States, and there are almost 5,000 motorcycle fatalities a year. That's almost 14 a day. Motorists don't do a good job looking out for motorcycles, and neither do insurance companies. Hi, I'm Chris Klotz, and as a writer and an attorney, I know that insurance companies treat motorcycle cases differently. If you've been injured in a motorcycle accident, bring your case to me to review. Let me take my writing experience and my knowledge of how to deal with insurance companies to get you the compensation that you deserve. The call and the advice during the call are free. Stevenson Klotz Injury Lawyers, bring it. I'm interested to hear, how you decide and how you make a decision about, how you're going to do your stories and how you put together your stories and find, motorcycle interest stories that are really kind of, human stories.
Yeah. And that's the main thing is I'm looking for people and personalities. And so the main focus when I travel is going to the areas where the television show airs to try to get content. So people who live there see themselves and their friends on the TV show. That makes sense. But the first season of the TV show, the first line of the show is always, "This is not a show about motorcycles. It's about the people." And so I try to really stick to that. And I also branch a little bit past that even too, to be what I like to tell people who aren't bikers, who like TV stations that I'm trying to get to pick up the show, is that the motorcycle, it's not a show about motorcycles. The motorcycles are the literal and figurative vehicle to tell people stories and travel stories. This past week's show was one of my favorites, and it was about a trip to a little German town in the hills of the Cascade Mountains in Washington. It's a Bavarian village in the middle of not in the middle of the United States, but the United States, where bikers ride there to get beer and German food, and it's really cool. And I had a video about the trip that you and I made up to the top of the mountain in Las Vegas, where we were in Las Vegas. Instead of 110 degrees, we were freezing our asses off.
That was a cold ass day. Oh my God.
And we rode up into the snow. And, that was
totally
that was
unprepared.
Cool. Yeah.
Went up there from Pensacola, Florida with not sufficient clothes. And we were I don't know about you. You had heated handlebars.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did not. I was frozen.
Yeah,
But yeah,
the BMW R18 that I rented had heated handle grips. They actually got so hot I had to turn them down a little bit. They were burning my hands.
oh man. Well, so just talking about motorcycles in general, I always like to ask people, tell me about your bikes that you've got, and then what I also want to like transition to after that is, tell us a little bit about some of the bike projects that you do, because you have put a lot back into the community, and I want to hear kind of about some of the special builds that you have done. But first of all, tell our listeners what are you riding right now? What do you have in your garage?
Right, I have 4 Harley Davidsons in my garage right now. The first one I bought new. It's the only one that I bought new, and it cost me more than all the other ones combined. But and it wasn't expensive. It's a street bob, so it's on the lower end of the Harley Davidsons. So like I was saying earlier, I first bought a Sportster, and the guy said, you're going to be in here to trade that in right away, which I did. But I did that in 2014, and I've had it ever since. I've had it all over the country. So when I moved to Memphis, it was black, like flat black. And I dropped it off at my friend's garage. It's no longer there, but it was Leatherwood Motorcycle Works. Dropped it off at Christmas. We were going to go home to Missouri for Christmas. Just going to have him do an oil change and service it. And I came back, and he surprised me by painting the whole thing because he hated black bikes. So he just hates seeing the Harleys that are black. And he painted it blue, not my choice. It just was. And that kind of became my thing, is blue. I still have that bike, but a couple years ago, I was washing it, and I was dumb. Again, the things I don't know. I sprayed it off with a pressure sprayer, and that's a bad thing because what happens if you have a little nick in your clear coat, it'll blow it right off, and it blew the clear coat off the fender. And the guy who painted it said, "Send it back to me in Memphis, and I'll fix it for you." Well, he got into some trouble. The shop shut down, and never got my fender back. So I ordered this fender off the internet, and it was black. And I was riding around with a black mismatched fender. The clear coat on the rest of it was starting to fade. So my friend Garrett, who has a little shop in Theodore, Alabama called Black Sprocket Garage, said, "You know what? Let's do a project with this bike." And so that's kind of how it all started out. And in that case, I had an overall plan with him, but I still didn't want to see it till the end. And he did a knockout club style bike for me, and we got a 21-inch big spoke wheel on the front, new shocks, a crazy paint job. I put a fairing on it. It's painted. The windshield's painted. The crash bar is blue. It's just one of a kind. And so he did such a great job on that. We're like, what do we do next? And that bike's going to the grave with me. I'll be buried with it.
I'll be sure to make sure that it goes into the grave with you. Riding on.
And then, so we were like, hey, let's do another project together. And with the plan of building a bike and flipping it. So far, I still have it. I haven't sold it or anything yet. But I got wind of this Harley Davidson Heritage Softail that's been sitting around for 10 years under somebody's carport. Well, the story I heard was a 2016, and my friend was going to go buy it, and she's like, "Oh, I had flat tires, so I didn't get it." How much do they want for it? $3,000, and it has 2,000 miles on it. She said, "Like, you didn't buy it because it has a flat tire?" I said, "Where is it?" I went over there immediately, and it wasn't a 2016; it was a 2006, and it didn't have 2,000 miles on it, but it only had 9,000 miles on this bike. But it was sitting there. The tires were flat. It wouldn't start. I had gas sitting in it for 10 years. So I actually got the guy to sell it to me for $1,700, and we built that. We stripped everything off of it. And in fact, I sold all the parts online that I stripped off and got more money than I paid for the bike. And we turned it into a Cholo style bike, a Vicla style. It's beautiful blue bike. Blue is the theme. It's got fishtail exhaust on it, ape hanger handlebars, a custom one-of-a-kind paint job. And just spent, I didn't, but Garrett, the guy at Black Sprocket Garage, just spent countless hours scrubbing all the rust off it. And now it's a beautiful bike. And so that one is up for sale. What I would like to do at some point is flip a couple bikes and make enough that I can fund a charity bike giveaway, because I'm not rich. I can't just give away $15,000, $20,000. But hopefully that'll be the point at some point. Well, in all this, that Dyna was so beautiful afterwards, and I'd been riding all over the country. Like, if I keep doing that, it's going to get torn up. So I went on a hunt for a bagger, which is also more comfortable. And I found this 2009 Electra Glide, which is a street glide, big, but only bigger with old grandpa crap all over it and tour pack and stuff like that. And I actually went to look at a motorcycle, but this guy, the dealer, also had a car for sale, and my wife hated her minivan. And I was like, hey, what if I bought the minivan and the bike? What kind of deal are you going to give to me? And he goes, well, I'm hurting today. I'm a little upside down, so I'll tell you what, I'm not coming $1 off the motorcycle, but I'll give you whatever I paid for that car. I'll give you the car for that price. Well, he didn't even know what he paid for it. So we went in and looked inside, and basically the difference between what he paid for it and what he wanted for it is what he was asking for the motorcycle. So basically I bought the car and he threw the motorcycle in for free.
Oh, man.
And then I rode it all over the country, beat the hell out of it. I rode it from Gulf Shores in Alabama to Niagara Falls and back for one. The day after I bought it, went on a 2,000-mile ride to Tampa and back and all points in between. And I just told myself, this is a bike I'm going to beat up. I'm not ever going to do anything to it. I'm just going to leave it. But then after all that riding on it, I kind of fell in love with it and was kind of like sick of looking at this ugly bike that I'm riding everywhere. Plus, when I'm out on the road, that bike represents me, and to some extent, it represents you and the other people who sponsor my TV show and stuff. So I was like, I can't really be riding around with this beat-up bike that's got spray paint on it and stuff. So I started talking to Cottonmouth Customs in Pensacola. They're over on Gulf Breeze, and I started working on a project with them, and they called me the other day, and they were like, you know what, we're going to cover all of the costs. We're going to give you all the parts, but we're going to do what we want to the bike, and you don't get to look at it till we're done with it. So they have the bike, and it's all sitting over there all beat up, but they tell me in about 3 weeks it's going to be a mind-blowing bike that I won't recognize. So I'm
how cool.
Looking forward to that. That's kind of cool. On the first time I had a surprise bike, I didn't know there was a surprise at all, but this one I know. I just had no idea what they're doing to it. And the latest bike I picked up was another rescue, and I call these ride rescues because these are these bikes that people put like 8,000-9,000 miles on, and they just sit forever. And believe it or not, having a bike sit around doing nothing is worse for it than riding the hell out of it. So
bad for it.
But when you want to flip it and it says it only has 9,000 miles on it, that's a big selling point. So I found this bike in Tallahassee. My friend Garrett and I hauled over there. He was a retired guy. Again, it's just rotting in his backyard. And he wanted like $5,000 for it. And we were just talking. He goes, you know what? This bike just needs to get rescued. So I'll give it to you for $3,000. Sold. I took it. And now I'm working on a plan with a shop called Bad Boy Toys in Pelham, Alabama. It's funny because I was over in Panama City Beach and saw a couple of their bikes that I really liked. One was a veteran bike, and one was a Grateful Dead bike. The people who follow me know I'm kind of a deadhead. And I just did these 15-second videos and posted them to Facebook Reels, and they got over 1 million views. So their phones started ringing off the hook with people wanting to do work with them, and they called me and offered to build that Road King for me. So
that's super cool, man.
Yeah, taking that up there tomorrow. And like I said, I keep all 4 of them in my garage and ride them. I don't care. But what I like to do with the Heritage and this Road King is to sell them, make a little money, and at some point go find another one for $3,000 and then have the money to where not only I can do something with it, but one of these shops works with me, and maybe we do next year, and we can talk about this a little bit.
Do like a charity bike.
Yeah, at the Mecum auction that we're going to next week. Maybe we can get it out there and make a lot of money for a veterans charity. And that's kind of like my fantasy, is to not only be like, hey, we made all this money for this charity, but on a national stage, a bike project that was my brainchild. I can't actually do the work because I suck at it, but it's my idea. Gets sold for a whole bunch of money on a national scale. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, Chris Best and I are, I'm just saying your last name because we're both Chris. Chris and I are headed up to Vegas next week to go to the Mecum auction with the National Academy of Motorcycle Injury Lawyers, and that's going to be a good time. Man, we're running out of time, Chris. That went by like so fast. So right. I just want to say, Chris Best, Biker Dad, been so good to have you. You can find Chris Best on all social media platforms. He's Biker Dad. And you have how many followers on Facebook now?
Well, I hit 330,000 today, but then I noticed like 20 scam pages, so I banned them, and I'm back down to like 290, 800 or something.
Well, awesome, dude. Well, I'm looking forward to us spending some time together next week. I am Chris Klotz with the Stevenson Klotz Injury Law Firm in Pensacola. We are hanging on the Motorcycle Hang Time Show podcast, and look forward to talking to everybody on our next episode. Thanks to Chris Best, Biker Dad, for coming on today. Chris, good to have you, and I'll catch up with you next week.
Absolutely. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Motorcycle Hang Time with Chris Klotz. Go to StevensonKlotz.com to get more information about motorcycle safety issues and motorcycle law. Please leave us a rating and a review whenever you listen to your podcast. We invite you to spend time with us on our next episode.